reports from Iran regarding human rights situation in the country. How would you view that, and what are your concerns, please?
Well, you're right to highlight those concerns. I'm looking at you. You're right to highlight those concerns. There have been, since President Rouhani assumed power, 2,400 deaths, unlawful deaths of Iranian citizens in the 3 years since he's been in power. And it is a reflection of the dire state of human rights. That's been highlighted by organisations such as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch. Genuine concerns about crimes perpetrated against minors, against women, for the most innocent of crimes. Corporal punishment and the ultimate sanction of death should not be a punishment in a civilized society, and it's a very genuine concern that the whole of the international community must be mindful of, particularly when they talk to the Iranian regime and bring them in from the cold. Human rights violations must be part of the agenda when anybody discusses anything with the Iranian regime.
Yes, thank you. You have supported the EDM 664 together with many of your colleagues, cross-party MPs from House of Commons, condemning the 29th October rocket attack on Camp Liberty as a crime against humanity and a flagrant violation of the Memorandum of Understanding signed between the government of Iraq and the UN. Can you please explain about this?
Well, you are right to highlight, we are right to highlight the fact that, again, completely unlawful attacks on peaceable comrades and friends of the resistance movement in both Ashraf and most recently in Liberty. The people of Ashraf historically and now Liberty should have the rights guaranteed and enshrined through the Geneva Convention and protected accordingly. And that's why so many parliamentarians of, as you say, both House of Lords and House of Commons, in a spirit of solidarity, have signed motions in this Parliament, this British Parliament, to highlight those concerns. It is unacceptable. The butchery that was perpetrated is completely unacceptable. And the Iranian regime and their friends in Iraq must be held to account for what do amount to crimes against human civilization.
What are your requirements from the British government, UN and the United States about Camp Liberty?
Liberty needs protection. Liberty needs to be, as Ashraf was, a bastion of decent, profound human rights that we enjoy elsewhere in the world, not attacked, not bullied in the way that both Ashraf and Liberty were. And that is therefore a responsibility of the British government not to wash its hands of this as some problem that is nothing to do with us. Human rights violations anywhere in the world are something to do with all of us. And that too must be responsible of the American government and of course the United Nations, which should be, always was, established to be, like the League of Nations before it, as the policeman of the world to guarantee those rights and liberties. So again, international organisations, governments elsewhere, washing their hands of this problem, hoping it will go away, is completely unacceptable. One of the great strengths of the NCRI and the parliamentary groups scattered around the world is to be a conscience for human rights, mindful of what's happening in the great country of Iran and mindful of what's happening to those groups of Iranians in that lonely part of the world.
Could you please say your view about the relocation process?
Well, the relocation process has been a haphazard one from the start. Promises were made that when people were forced after attacks from Camp Ashraf, they would be treated in a civilized, humane way in the move to liberty. That manifesting hasn't happened because the international guarantees and pressure on the Iraqi and Iranian regimes has not happened in the way that it should. The liberty camp is a desperate place, desperate because of the bullying from Iraq, and it raises that other question, and we are mindful of that in the West because of the whole instability of the situation in the Middle East, the plight of refugees. Some governments around the world have been mindful of their international responsibilities, and I cite in particular the government of Albania, who have impressed the Iranian community around the world by their generosity of spirit and generosity financially as well in creating homes and bringing Iranian refugees from Ashraf and Liberty to their country. That is a model many other countries across the world should be displaying towards the residents of Liberty.
What is your view that all of the Camp Liberty residents should be protected until the last person that would be relocated?
The status of the Geneva Convention on Human Rights and Protected Peoples is very clear on this, but that convention has not been delivered, and there is no point having a convention that guarantees human rights if it is not put into good effect and is used to support and protect people. And that is the challenge again of the United Nations, and that is the challenge of the resistance movement throughout the world, to make sure that becomes a reality until such a point that the last person leaves Liberty and is resettled elsewhere.
Thank you. And finally, Iranian and supporters of NCRI are preparing for the annual gathering in Paris in July 9th in support of a free and democratic Iran. What does this gathering symbolize, and what is your message to them and your colleagues in democratic parliaments around the world? Please.
Well, all of us in this House of Commons need to be mindful of the fact that we are practitioners and beneficiaries of democracy. Last year, I was privileged enough to be elected to the House of Commons again to serve my constituents. I want that opportunity afforded to people in Iran and in a free, secular democracy when anybody can stand for an election, regardless of your sex and your background, regardless of your religious convictions. I want democracy to mean something in Iran and people to have free choices. A free, secular, democratic regime has been the objective of Maryam Rajavi and her colleagues in the NCRI. We have this annual gathering I've been privileged enough to attend on now many occasions to see the enormity of support that the movement enjoys from the international community. But more important than that, the huge number of now sadly Iranian exiles because they are denied that democracy, gathering in Paris to hear Maryam Rajavi, to hear message of support. It is a tremendous event which reminds us all of the importance and strength of democracy, and sadly how that is denied the people of Iran. So it is a celebration, but it is a somber celebration, reminding people in Iran that they have friends outside, and looking forward to the day that many of those exiles, and even politicians like me, can visit a free, democratic Iran.
Thank you. And the last question about the human rights EDM.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Mr. Williams, you and your colleagues from all parties of both houses of parliament have repeatedly raised your deep concern and condemned the increasing number of the execution in Iran and the Iranian regime putting pressure on political prisoners, as well as arresting activists, dissidents, and human rights defenders in arbitrary and security-related charges.
It remains a tragedy that regimes in Iran over many years have subjugated the Iranian people to the most vile human rights violations. That's been going on for a long time. Any hope that people had in 1979 that would change were dashed. Any hope that would change with the election of President Rouhani are deluding themselves. 2,400 deaths, political deaths, in the last 3 years should be a huge wake-up call to the international community that things are no better, things are worse. Minors are subjugated to the death sentence. Basic civil liberties are denied people. The press is hardly free. The situation whereby the supreme leader can determine who stands for presidential elections. All these go to the very core of the most basic human rights that everybody on this globe should be entitled to. But sadly, people in Iran are denied, and that's why many parliamentary colleagues have signed early day motions in this parliament here, a statement of support for that cause. People of all political backgrounds, both houses of parliament, all political parties, processes replicated all throughout the world in deploring human rights violations in Iran. It must end. All of us standing shoulder to shoulder, standing up for the most basic human rights that we should all expect and indeed are entitled to.
Thank you very much.